Ambassador Alina Vasquez walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber with her head held high. The room was enormous, built from some kind of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Seats rose up in circles around a central platform, and in those seats sat representatives from 47 different alien species. None of them looked friendly. Alina was a tall woman with dark hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen too much in her 52 years of life. She had been Earth's voice in the galactic community for 8 years now, and in all that time, she had never felt so alone. The aliens watched her like predators watching prey. The Vorath High Chancellor sat on the highest platform. Looking down at her with obvious contempt, he was a frightening creature, covered in scales as black as midnight, with 4 arms and eyes that burned with cruel intelligence. His species had ruled this council for over 3,000 years, and they had grown very comfortable with power. "Human ambassador," the Chancellor spoke, his voice translated by the small device in Elena's ear. "You have been summoned to hear the will of the Galactic Council." Elena stood on the central platform, surrounded on all sides by aliens who saw her species as nothing more than insects. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 12 years. They were the newest species, the weakest, the most primitive. At least that was what everyone believed. "The Council has reviewed humanity's progress," the Chancellor continued. "Your species has been given great opportunities, access to trade routes, permission to colonize 3 worlds beyond your home system. These are gifts that many species wait centuries to receive." Alina said nothing. She knew what was coming. She had seen the intelligence reports, intercepted the secret communications. The Council had done this before, many times. "Now, it is time for humanity to repay these gifts," the Chancellor said, and his mouth twisted into something like a smile. "The Council requires the following: 60% of Earth's mineral resources delivered annually, 10 million humans each year to serve in the Council's labor programs, an immediate surrender of sovereignty over your 3 colony worlds." Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. Several alien representatives made sounds that might have been laughter. "In exchange," the Chancellor continued, "the Council will graciously allow your species to continue existing. You will be protected, guided, given purpose." Elena felt anger burning in her chest, but her face remained calm. 10 million humans per year. The Council called it labor conscription, but Elena knew the truth. It was slavery. Pure and simple. "What happens if we refuse?" she asked, her voice steady. The Chancellor's eyes gleamed with amusement. "The Armada of United Species will visit your homeworld. 200,000 warships, Ambassador. Your entire fleet numbers what? 300. Perhaps 350? He leaned forward. "Do you know what happened to the Kalani when they refused our generous offer?" Alina knew. Everyone knew. The Kalani had been a proud species with a beautiful homeworld. Now that world was a mining quarry, its surface torn apart for resources. The survivors were scattered across the galaxy, working as servants for their conquerors. "Their planet screamed for 7 days as we stripped it bare," the Chancellor said softly. "Their children watched their parents die. Now they serve us, as all weak species must serve the strong. This is the natural order, Ambassador. This is how the galaxy works." More laughter from the assembled representatives. The Meridani, a species of tall, silver-skinned beings, looked uncomfortable, but they said nothing. The Sylph, creatures of living crystal, watched silently. Everyone knew their place. Everyone stayed quiet. "You have 30 solar cycles to deliver your acceptance," the Chancellor declared. "Use this time wisely. Explain to your leaders that resistance is not merely futile, it is foolish. We have crushed species far more advanced than yours. We have burned worlds that were old when your son was young. Do not test us." Lena looked around the chamber at all those alien faces. Some showed cruelty. Some showed pity. A few showed shame. But none showed support. Humanity stood alone. Then she did something that surprised everyone in that room. She smiled. It was not a nervous smile or a defeated smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. It was small and calm and absolutely terrifying to those who noticed it. "I understand completely, High Chancellor," Alina said. "I will return to Earth immediately and present your terms to my government. You will have our answer within 1 hour." The chamber went silent. The Chancellor's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of confusion among his species. 1 hour? He repeated. Species typically require weeks to process such significant decisions. Humanity doesn't need weeks, Alina replied simply. We've been expecting this conversation for quite some time. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The Meridani ambassador, an elderly female named Solis, watched the human leave with growing unease. She had seen many young species receive the Council's ultimatum over her long lifetime. She had seen them weep, beg, threaten, and ultimately submit. She had never seen one smile. What game is she playing? The Sylph representative asked quietly. No game, Solis replied, her silver eyes troubled. Did you see her face? She was not afraid. Not even slightly. Impossible. The humans are primitive. Their technology is generations behind ours. Perhaps, Solis said, but I have studied humans, their history, their nature. They are strange creatures. When cornered, they become most dangerous. When threatened, they unite in ways other species cannot comprehend. The Chancellor called for order, dismissing concerns about the humans' odd behavior. Earth would submit, he declared. They all submitted eventually. But later that night, alone in his private chambers, the Chancellor found himself unable to sleep. He kept thinking about that smile, about the calm confidence in the humans' eyes. He told himself it meant nothing. Humans were weak. Everyone knew this. Yet somewhere deep in his ancient mind, in the place where instincts lived, something whispered a warning. Something felt wrong. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, meanwhile, was already aboard her shuttle, racing toward the communication relay that would connect her to Earth. Her smile was gone now, replaced by fierce determination. This is Ambassador Vasquez, she said into the secure channel. Authorization code, Prometheus 7. Connect me to the Security Council immediately. Pause, then a voice. Confirmed Ambassador. All members standing by. What is the Council's decision? Alina took a deep breath. They made their demands. Standard subjugation protocol. Exactly what we predicted 12 years ago. Understood. And your assessment? Alina thought about the Chancellor's cruel smile. About the laughter of 47 species. About the Kalani and all the others who had been crushed under the Council's heel. It's time, she said. Activate Prometheus. Show them who we really are. Deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, in a bunker that officially did not exist. The most powerful people on Earth gathered around a long table. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists sat shoulder to shoulder, watching a holographic display that showed Ambassador Vasquez's face. They gave us 30 days, Alina reported from her shuttle. Standard Council ultimatum. 60% of our resources, 10 million people per year as slaves, and complete surrender of our colonies. President Amara Okafor of the United African Federation leaned forward. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and eyes that had guided her nation through 3 crises. And if we refuse? 200,000 warships. They'll burn Earth like they burned the Kalani homeworld. Silence filled the bunker. On the surface, billions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that their fate was being decided in this room. Children played in parks. Families shared meals. Lovers walked hand in hand under the stars. None of them knew how close everything was to ending. Defense Minister Kofi Mensah stood up. His military uniform crisp and precise. He was a large man with a serious face, former soldier who had fought in 3 wars before becoming the voice of Earth's combined military forces. Let me be clear about our situation, he said, activating a display that showed the Council Armada. Ships filled the screen, thousands upon thousands of vessels bristling with weapons. The Council fleet outnumbers us roughly 600 to 1. Their weapons are more powerful. Their shields are more advanced. In a conventional war, we would last perhaps 6 hours, and we don't fight a conventional war, said a quiet voice from the corner of the room. Everyone turned to look at Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She was a small woman with short black hair and glasses that seemed too big for her face. She looked like someone's grandmother, the kind of person who might offer you tea and cookies. But Dr. Tanaka was the most important scientist on Earth, the architect of something called the Prometheus Initiative. 16 years ago, she began, rising to address the room when our telescopes first detected signs of alien civilizations. We asked ourselves a simple question. What if they're not friendly? What if when we finally meet them, they see us as prey? She walked to the main display and entered a code that made several people gasp. The code was supposed to be known by only 5 people on Earth. Every major nation agreed to participate, Dr. Tanaka continued. Americans worked with Russians. Chinese worked with Europeans. Old enemies became partners because we all understood that the universe might contain threats beyond our imagination.
Oh.
The display changed, showing something that made even hardened generals lean back in their chairs. Ships. Human ships. But not like anything the Council had ever seen. They were sleek and beautiful, built from materials that seemed to drink in light. There were hundreds of them hidden in bases throughout the solar system. Vessels we showed the Council were decoys, Dr. Tanaka explained. Primitive designs we built specifically to make us look weak. We wanted them to underestimate us. We wanted them to think we were harmless. President Chen Wei of China nodded slowly. His nation had contributed heavily to the initiative. And our real capabilities? Dr. Tanaka smiled, and it was the same smile Alina had shown the Council. Our ships are not just equal to Council technology. They are generations beyond it. While we pretended to be primitive, our scientists were making breakthroughs that Council researchers haven't achieved in 3,000 years. She changed the display again, showing weapon systems that made no sense to most people in the room. Energy patterns that twisted in impossible ways. Devices that seemed to violate basic physics. Council technology is all based on the same principles, Dr. Tanaka explained. They discovered certain scientific truths millennia ago, and they've been refining those same techniques ever since. They stopped innovating. They stopped questioning. They assumed they knew everything worth knowing. We found something different, President Okafor said, understanding dawning in her eyes. We found several different things. Our weapons don't just damage ships. They disable the fundamental energy systems that all Council technology depends on. One pulse from our primary weapon can shut down every ship in a fleet. No shields can stop it because their shields use the same energy we're targeting. The room erupted in excited murmurs. For the first time since Elena's report, hope appeared on the faces of Earth's leaders. Russian President Viktor Volkov raised his hand. He was a stern man, not given to emotion. But even his voice shook slightly as he asked, "How confident are we that this will work? Have we tested it? We've tested it on captured Council technology and on our own decoy ships that use Council-style systems. It works perfectly. Every single time." Dr. Tanaka paused. But there's something else. Something we hoped we would never have to use. She brought up one final image. It showed a device roughly the size of a small building, located somewhere in deep space. We call it the Hammer. It's a weapon capable of destroying an entire planet. We built it as a last resort, a final option if Earth itself was about to fall. Voice grew heavy. We have no intention of using it. Humanity does not want to become the monsters we feared meeting. But the Council must know it exists. They must understand that pushing us to extinction means risking their own. President Okafor stood, looking around the table at representatives of every nation on Earth. Old rivalries meant nothing in this room. Ancient hatreds had been set aside. For the first time in human history, the species was truly united. We have 2 choices, she said. We can submit. We can give them our resources, our people, our future. Our children will grow up as slaves, and their children after them forever. She let that image sink in before continuing. Or we can stand up. We can show the galaxy that humanity will not kneel. Yes, there are risks. Yes, we might fail. But I would rather die free than live as property. The vote was taken. Every nation, every leader, every voice, it was unanimous. Then it's decided, President Okafor said. We respond in 1 hour. and we make sure the entire galaxy hears our answer." As the meeting adjourned, Dr. Tanaka approached the president quietly. "Are you afraid?" she asked. Okafor considered the question carefully. "Terrified," she admitted, "but I've read human history. Every time someone told us to kneel, we found a way to stand. Every time they said we couldn't win, we found a way to fight. Perhaps it's foolish. Perhaps it's pride. But it's who we are." Dr. Tanaka nodded. "Then let's show them exactly who they've threatened." Across Earth, hidden bases began to activate. Ships that had waited in silence for 16 years powered up their engines. Soldiers who had trained for a war they hoped would never come received their orders. And in the void of space, something ancient and powerful stirred. Ready at last to reveal itself to a galaxy that had no idea what was coming, the Vorith High Chancellor was enjoying a meal of live serpents when his assistant rushed into the dining chamber with panic in his eyes. The Chancellor did not appreciate interruptions during meals, and he was about to express this displeasure when the assistant spoke. "The human ambassador has returned, High Chancellor. She demands an audience with the full council." Immediately, the Chancellor paused, a serpent still wriggling in his clawed hand. "Returned? It has barely been 1 hour." "Yes, High Chancellor. She says she brings Earth's official response." This was unusual. Species given the ultimatum typically spent days in denial, weeks in desperate negotiation, months in hopeless preparation before finally accepting their fate. The humans had taken 1 hour. Perhaps, the Chancellor thought with some satisfaction, they were simply smarter than most. Perhaps they understood the futility of resistance without. Needing to learn the lesson the hard way, he finished his meal and made his way to the council chamber. Representatives from all 47 species were already assembling, curious about this unprecedented speed. Whispers filled the crystal halls. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood alone on the central platform, exactly where she had stood before. But something was different. Her posture had changed. She no longer looked like a diplomat seeking compromise. She looked like a soldier delivering a message. "Ambassador," the Chancellor said, settling into his throne. "You have Earth's answer?" "I do." Elena held up a small data chip. "With your permission, I will broadcast Earth's response to all present." The Chancellor waved his hand dismissively. "Proceed." Elena inserted the chip into the Council's communication system. But she did something else too, something no one noticed. She activated a secondary protocol that connected to communication relays across the galaxy. Relays that human engineers had quietly modified over the past decade. Earth's message would not just reach this chamber. It would reach every inhabited world. The display activated. Images began to appear. The first showed an ancient battle, humans fighting against impossible odds with primitive weapons. Text appeared. Thermopylae. 300 soldiers stood against an empire. Another image. A small fortress surrounded by enemies. The Alamo. 200 defenders refused to surrender. More images followed. Stalingrad, Warsaw, Iwo Jima. Small groups of humans facing certain death and choosing to fight anyway. "What is this?" the Chancellor demanded. "Our history," Elena replied. "Who we are. What we do when threatened." The images faded. Replaced by the symbol of the United Earth Government, a simple blue circle representing the planet, surrounded by stars. Then Elena's recorded voice began to speak. "To the Galactic Council and all species of the galaxy, Earth has received your demands. After careful consideration, we respectfully decline." Murmurs erupted throughout the chamber. Decline? No one declined. Furthermore, the recording continued. "We issue the following counter-demands. First, the immediate end of what you call labor conscription and what we call slavery. All sentient beings deserve freedom. Second, the return of sovereignty to all species currently under Council subjugation. Third, formal recognition and reparations for the Kelani people and all others who have suffered under Council rule." The murmurs became shouts. Several representatives rose from their seats in outrage. The Chancellor's scales shifted to a deep red, a sign of fury among his kind. "You have 30 solar cycles to comply with these demands," Elena's voice continued, calm and clear. Refuse and face consequences unlike anything this galaxy has witnessed. The Chancellor slammed his fist against his throne. This is madness. You threaten us? 300 primitive ships against 200,000? Your entire species will burn for this insult. Alina raised her hand. There's one more thing. A demonstration of our sincerity. At that exact moment, alarms began screaming throughout Council space. Emergency signals flooded in from the Vorath home system. Something had appeared at the edge of their territory. Something that shouldn't exist. A human ship. But it was nothing like the clumsy vessels in Council databases. This ship was elegant, almost artistic, its hull seeming to flow like liquid metal. It was smaller than a Council battleship, but radiated power in ways their sensors couldn't properly measure. What is that? The Sylph representative demanded, staring at the tactical display. No one answered. No one could. The human ship moved toward the Vorath defensive fleet, 47,000 warships that guarded the heart of the Chancellor's territory. The fleet commander ordered all weapons to fire. Nothing happened. The ship released a single pulse of energy, invisible to the eye, but devastating in effect. It spread outward like a wave, washing over every Council vessel in range, and one by one, 47,000 warships went dark. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Shields flickered and vanished. The mightiest fleet in the sector became nothing more than floating metal, helpless and drifting. In the Council chamber, absolute silence fell. Representatives stared at their displays in disbelief. The Vorath defensive fleet, pride of the Empire, had been disabled in an instant. No casualties, Alina said quietly into the silence. We didn't destroy a single ship. We didn't kill a single being. We could have. We chose not to. She looked directly at the Chancellor. That was a warning shot. The Chancellor's scales had turned pale, almost white. His four hands trembled slightly as he gripped his throne. How? He whispered. This is impossible. Your technology is primitive. We have studied your world. We know your capabilities. You know what we wanted you to know? Lena's voice was soft, but carried throughout the chamber. For 16 years, we have prepared for this moment. We built ships you've never seen. We developed weapons you can't understand. We did this because we studied your history too. We saw what you do to species who can't fight back. She turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. We don't want war. We want peace. We want to trade, to explore, to learn alongside all of you. But we will not be slaves. We will not watch our children sold into bondage. We will not surrender our future because you think might makes right. The Meridani ambassador, Solis, rose from her seat. Her silver face showed an emotion rarely seen in council chambers, hope. The human speaks truth, she said, her voice carrying across the room. For too long, this council has ruled through fear. For too long, we have watched young species crushed beneath the Vorath heel and said nothing. Sit down. The Chancellor roared. No. Solis stood taller. I will not. The humans have shown us something important today. They have shown us that the old order can be challenged, that the mighty can be humbled, that freedom is worth fighting for. Other representatives began to stand. The Bellerin, the Corvish, species who had chafed under council rule for generations, who had been waiting for something, someone. To show them another way was possible. The Chancellor looked around his chamber and saw his power crumbling. The fear that had held the galaxy in check for millennia was evaporating, replaced by something far more dangerous. Hope. This is not over, he snarled at Alina. Your little trick means nothing. We have hundreds of thousands more ships. We will come to your world. We will crush you. Lena nodded slowly. You can try. But remember what you saw today. Remember that we disabled your entire fleet without killing anyone. We showed you mercy. Push us further, and we may not be so gentle. She walked toward the exit, then paused and looked back. The galaxy is watching, Chancellor. Every species, every world, every being who has ever dreamed of freedom is watching. What happens next is up to you. She left the chamber. Behind her, chaos erupted as representatives argued, accused, and demanded answers that no one could provide. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, beings who had lived their entire lives under council oppression watched the broadcast and felt something stir in their hearts. The humans had done the impossible. They had stood up and refused to break. Perhaps, just perhaps, the long night was finally ending, the days following. Earth's broadcasts were unlike anything the galaxy had seen in 3,000 years. The old order, so stable and unchanging, began to crack like ice in spring. The Meridani Collective was first to act. Their ambassador, Solus, transmitted a public message to Earth within hours of the council meeting. Her words were simple and powerful. The Meridani people stand with humanity. We offer friendship, alliance, and trade between equals. The days of fear are ending. The Chancellor declared this treason and ordered the Meridani homeworld blockaded. But when his ships arrived, they found human vessels already in orbit. Not threatening, not aggressive, simply present. A silent warning that attacking the Meridani would have consequences. Other species followed the Meridani example. The Sylth Consortium, beings of living crystal who had resented Vorath dominance for centuries, announced their withdrawal from the council. The Bellerin remnant did the same. The Corvish Trade Federation declared neutrality, refusing to participate in any action against humanity. Within 2 weeks, the council had lost nearly a third of its members, but it was among the enslaved species that the greatest changes occurred. On mining world after mining world, workers who had labored in chains for generations began to rise. The Kalani survivors, scattered across a dozen systems, organized in ways their overseers never expected. The Venari, a species that had been conquered so long ago that few remembered they had once been free, suddenly remembered human agents had been busy. For years they had been quietly making contact with resistance movements, providing technology, weapons, and most importantly, hope. Now those seeds bore fruit on Kalani Prime. The broken world that had once been beautiful. 3 million workers stormed the mining administration complex. Their weapons were crude, but they had something better. Devices that disabled their overseers' technology. Human devices. Gifts from a species that understood what it meant to fight for freedom. The Overseer Garrison. 3,000 Vorath soldiers with advanced weapons found themselves suddenly helpless. Their guns wouldn't fire. Their communications wouldn't work. Their vehicles wouldn't move. The uprising took 2 hours. The Kalani people, who had been beaten and enslaved for decades, showed their former masters something unexpected: mercy. The overseers were captured, not killed. Imprisoned, not executed. "We will not become what they were," declared Kira, a Kalani female who had emerged as the rebellion's leader. "We will not teach our children that cruelty is strength. Let them live. Let them watch us build something better." Similar scenes played out across council space. The Venari liberated their homeworld. The Tresic, a species of aquatic beings forced to work in underwater facilities, took control of their prison stations. Everywhere, the message was the same: freedom, not revenge. Chancellor Vorath watched his empire dissolving and felt something he had not experienced in his long life: desperation. He called a meeting of his loyal admirals, the military leaders who had helped him maintain control for centuries. The gathering took place in his war room, a massive chamber filled with tactical displays and ancient trophies from conquered species. "The humans must be destroyed," the Chancellor declared. "Not defeated, not humbled, destroyed. Every man, woman, and child. Their world reduced to ash. Their colonies burned. Their name erased from history." Admiral Koros, his most experienced commander, shifted uncomfortably. "High Chancellor, their weapon disabled our entire defensive fleet. If they can do that to any force we send, then we overwhelm them with numbers," the Chancellor interrupted. "Their weapon has range limits. It cannot disable every ship in the galaxy at once. We gather everything. Every warship, every soldier, every resource. The largest fleet ever assembled. We jump directly to their homeworld and end this before they can respond. And if their weapon still affects us, then we land ground forces. We board their stations. We crash ships into their cities if we must. The Chancellor's eyes burned with hatred. I have crushed species before. I have personally watched worlds burn. The humans think they are special? They think their defiance means something. I will teach them what happens when you challenge the natural order. The admirals exchanged worried glances, but said nothing. The Chancellor was beyond reason, beyond strategy. This had become personal. Within days, the Loyalist fleet began to assemble. 80,000 warships gathered from across Council space. It was indeed the largest military force ever created, enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Earth's intelligence networks watched the buildup with growing concern. Ambassador Vasquez sent urgent reports to the Security Council. Dr. Tanaka's team analyzed every piece of data they could gather. They're coming in force. Defense Minister Mensa reported during an emergency session. 80,000 ships? Maybe more? The Chancellor himself is leading the fleet. Can our weapon disable that many vessels? President Okafor asked. Dr. Tanaka hesitated. In theory, yes. But we've never tested it at that scale. And they may have found countermeasures. We've given them time to study what we did to their defensive fleet. General Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's naval forces, studied the tactical display. She was a small woman with short gray hair, a veteran of countless simulations who was about to face real combat for the first time. They'll arrive in approximately 6 days, she said. We have 200 operational ships of the new design, plus the decoy fleet, which is useless in a real fight. 200 against 80,000, someone muttered. Quality against quantity, General Chen replied. Every ship we have is worth 1,000 of theirs. Maybe more, and if that's not enough. Silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what she meant. The hammer. The planet killer. The weapon of last resort. President Okafor spoke carefully. The hammer is for defense only. If they threaten Earth itself, if all other options fail, understood, Dr. Tanaka said. But I want to be clear about something. We built the hammer because we might need it. We hope we never do. The humans who created it did so with tears in their eyes. We are not the Varuth. We do not want to destroy. We want to protect. As Earth prepared for war, something remarkable happened. Ships began arriving from other systems. Maridani vessels, outdated, but willing. Sylph cruisers, their crystalline hulls gleaming in starlight. Even a small fleet of Kaylani ships. Ancient vessels that the survivors had somehow hidden from their conquerors, they came with a simple message. We stand with humanity, Admiral Kira. The Kalani rebel leader had somehow crossed the galaxy in a ship held together by hope and desperation. She stood before the United Earth Council, her scales scarred from years of abuse, her eyes bright with determination. My people have nothing to give you, she said. Our ships are old, our weapons are weak, but we know what the Vorith are capable of. We know what it means to fight them, and we know that sometimes standing together is more important than winning. President Okafor took the Kelani Admiral's hands in her own. You have already given us something precious. You have shown us that we're fighting for more than just Earth. We're fighting for everyone who has ever been told they don't matter. Everyone who has ever been crushed under someone else's heel. Outside the windows of the council chamber, Earth hung in the void, blue and green and beautiful. 7 billion humans looked up at stars that had once seemed full of wonder and now seemed full of danger. But they did not look away. They did not hide. The storm was coming, and humanity, for the first time in its history, would face it united. The Vorath Armada emerged from hyperspace, like a storm of metal and fire. 80,000 warships, more military power than had ever been gathered in one place. Arranged in perfect formation around Earth's solar system, Chancellor Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and looked at the small blue world that had dared to defy him. It seemed so fragile, so vulnerable. He could not understand how such a tiny species had caused so much trouble. All ships report ready, High Chancellor, Admiral Koros announced. The humans have positioned their fleet near their 4th planet. Approximately 200 vessels. 200 against 80,000? The Chancellor smiled. They must know this is hopeless. Perhaps they wish to die with honor. Shall we engage? Not yet. Let them see what they face. Let them understand the magnitude of their mistake. Then we will sweep them aside like insects. On the bridge of the UES Unity, General Sarah Chen watched the enemy fleet spread across her tactical display like a plague. She had never seen anything so massive, so overwhelming. For a moment, fear threatened to take hold. Then she looked at her crew. Men and women from every nation on Earth, working together with perfect coordination. Engineers from Japan, pilots from Brazil, weapons officers from Nigeria. The best humanity had to offer, united for the first time in history. All ships, this is General Chen, she said over the fleet-wide channel. The enemy believes they know who we are. They believe we are primitive, weak, afraid. Today, we show them the truth. 200 human ships moved forward to meet 80,000. The Battle of Seoul had begun. The Vorath fleet advanced confidently, weapons charging shields at full power. They had analyzed the human pulse weapon and developed what they believed were countermeasures. They had armored their ships with materials that should block the disabling effect. They were wrong. The first human pulse wave struck the lead elements of the Vorath armada. 15,000 ships went dark in an instant, their crews crying out in confusion as every system failed simultaneously. Impossible. Admiral Koros shouted. We hardened our systems. The countermeasures should work. You didn't understand what you were fighting, General Chen replied. Her voice transmitted to every ship in the system. Our weapon doesn't target your systems. It targets the fundamental energy your systems depend on. You cannot armor against it any more than you can armor against gravity. A second pulse wave. Then a third. Human ships danced through the massive armada, impossibly quick, impossibly precise. Every time the Vorath tried to target them, they were already gone. Every time a Vorath weapon fired, it struck empty space. Within 11 minutes, the battle was over. Not because the Vorath fleet was destroyed, it wasn't. 80,000 ships drifted silently in the void, their crews alive but helpless, their weapons cold, their engines dead. The Chancellor stared at the tactical display, unable to comprehend what had happened. His entire life, he had believed that power was the only truth in the universe. The strong ruled. The weak served. This was the natural order. And now, a species he had dismissed as insects had humbled him without killing a single one of his soldiers. We're being hailed, his communications officer reported, voice shaking. It's the human fleet commander. General Chen's face appeared on the main display. She looked tired but calm, like someone who had just finished a difficult task. Chancellor, she said, your fleet is disabled. Your ships cannot fight, cannot flee, cannot communicate with the rest of the galaxy. You have lost. Then destroy us, the Chancellor snarled. Finish what you started. Show the galaxy that humans are just as brutal as any other species? No. The simple word hung in the air. We could kill every one of your soldiers, General Chen continued. We could reduce your flagship to atoms. We choose not to, because we are not you, she spoke. Transport ships began appearing throughout the Vorath armada. Human vessels, carrying not weapons, but supplies. Food, water, medical equipment. We are providing humanitarian aid to your crews, General Chen explained. They will be fed. They will be cared for. They will not be harmed. The Chancellor shook his head slowly, unable to process what he was hearing. Why? Why would you help those who came to destroy you? Because we hope someday you will understand. Because mercy is not weakness. Because the universe doesn't have to be a place of endless cruelty and fear. General Chen's eyes met his through the display. Because every being deserves the chance to be better. 3 days later, Chancellor Vorath was brought before a new kind of council. Not the old council chamber, with its hierarchies and threats. This gathering took place on neutral ground. A space station that humans and their allies had. Constructed in record time, representatives from dozens of species were present. The Meridani, the Sylph, the Kalani, the Bellerin. Former slaves and former masters sitting together as equals. The Chancellor was not executed. He was not tortured. He was sentenced to exile on a small moon, where he would live out his remaining years under the care of colony survivors, people he had helped enslave. They treated him with kindness, not because he deserved it, but because they refused to become what he had been. His guards brought him food, asked about his health, even engaged him in conversation about history and philosophy. It was, he would later admit, the most devastating punishment imaginable. Every act of kindness was a reminder of what he had done, what he had been, what he had failed to understand. 1 year after the Battle of Sol, the Galactic Assembly held its first session. The old council was gone, replaced by a new organization where every species, no matter how small or new, held equal voice. Ambassador Alina Vasquez, now first speaker of the assembly, stood before the gathered representatives. Behind her, the symbol of the new order glowed, a simple circle of stars, representing unity among all worlds. 1 year ago, she said, humanity faced a choice: submit or resist, kneel or stand. We chose to stand, not because we wanted war, but because we believed in something greater than survival. She looked around the chamber at faces of 100 different species. Some had been enemies. Some had been slaves. Some had been oppressors. Now they were partners. We have a saying on Earth: walk softly but carry a big stick. For 16 years, we walked softly. We let you believe we were weak because we wanted to see who you truly were. Many failed that test. But some of you, even before you knew we had power, showed us kindness, showed us friendship. Those are the bonds we treasure now. Admiral Kira, the Kalani rebel leader, rose from her seat. Her scales were still scarred, but her eyes shone with joy. The humans gave my people hope when we had none, she said. They could have ignored us. They could have looked out only for themselves. Instead, they risked everything to help strangers. That is why we follow them. Not because of their weapons, but because of their hearts. The applause began with the Kelani delegation, then the Meridani, the Sylph, the Bellerin. One by one, representatives from every species rose to their feet. Alina felt tears in her eyes. Not tears of pride, though she felt that too. Tears of relief. For 16 years, humanity had carried a terrible secret. For 16 years, they had prepared for a war they hoped would never come. Now, finally, they could begin building something better, far from the assembly. On 1,000 different worlds, beings who had lived their entire lives under oppression looked up at the stars with new eyes. Children who had been born into slavery played in fields for the first time. Families that had been separated for generations were reunited. And in the depths of space, human exploration vessels pushed ever outward, not to conquer, not to dominate, to discover, to connect, to find others who might need a friend in the vast darkness between stars. Their ships carried a message. Transmitted on all frequencies, in every known language: we are humanity. We come in peace. We leave in peace. We seek friendship with all who desire it. But know this: we will never kneel. And we will never let anyone else be forced to kneel. The old order was dead. The new dawn had begun.